Good morning and welcome to our Live Talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our Live Talk program covering current events on this year, Thursday morning. Rise and shine and give God the glory. And this morning here, we're looking at the topic, defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'm going to be looking at this idea here of the oath of allegiance, the oath of allegiance of the United States. And so we're still talking about governments and working within a government system or working in leadership. And that's what I want to talk about. As you know, on Monday we had celebrated President's Day. So this idea here have come to my mind to talk about some of the things when it comes on to something like this, taking the oath of allegiance. So welcome again. Hopefully a blessed night rest and you already take on the challenges and the opportunities and blessings of this day. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you again for the blessings of your word, and I thank you for your guidance in our lives, dear Lord, that you continue to lead us along. May you bless us, dear Father, as we study your word, and ultimately we know that we not only are subject to the powers that are be, but ultimately to thee, dear Lord. May you bless us and may you give us the mind to always labor for the best interest of others. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm looking here at this what we call the oath of allegiance of the United States. And so my topic is defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so this is the oath of allegiance. I'll read it to you in a second here. And I want to put the oath of allegiance, and because this is current events, so I'm just don't want to talk about it as something that a person who is going to go into the government to pledge to, that they will defend. Most actually, it's a more direct role. They're working for the government, so they're claiming that they're going to be working in the best interest of the people. But in technicality, all people who belong to a country should be able to have faithfulness to that country, just as if you have faithfulness to a family or to a corporation or whatever you have a fiduciary responsibility to, even if it's just a client. But this is beautiful in itself. So I'm going to read it in a second. So as a matter of fact, I'll just go straight in and read the oath of allegiance of the United States of America. And it states here that I pledge to support, honor, and be loyal to the United States, its Constitution, and its laws. Where and if lawfully required, I further commit myself to defend the Constitution and laws of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, either by military, non-combatant, or civilian service, full stop. All right, so, or civilian service. So in some capacity, in some way, either taking up arms or non-arm, where you're helping the sick, or in a civilian service where you're probably working at a desk or something. So this is the oath of allegiance that a person would, it would be administered by somebody in the immigration service when a person becomes a citizen, or something that I think children say. I don't think they say it, but military people and certain people who are sworn in, I think as sheriffs or political people or various different people, some point in their life would swear to this or take this oath. So this is something that we agree with in doing. You have a connection with the people that you live in any country, and it would make sense that you would pledge to be able to support them and not be an enemy. So defend. So we accept this as something beautiful. You defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? Defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So I'm going to read a Bible text for you in Romans chapter 13, and you're familiar with this. And then to set off our discussion, I want to put these two ideas here so you know that the Bible promotes state and government. You know, it is very clear that the Lord says He creates the divisions among human beings. There's only one race, and the human race, and He creates these divisions and He put the bounds. We know those divisions started when they tried to make the Tower of Babel, and the Lord separated them by language, and then somehow through migration, they separated into different areas, and then later on affected by the climate, and so skin color and facial feature, I believe, came about by climate and diet. At least that's how I believe it. So, and this is where we have the differences. And so the differences is not something that's a negative thing, because I really believe it serves as a positive thing if you understand it, although it can be used as a weapon against each other. But we all part of the human race, all flesh and blood here. So when we read this text now about why it is, Christ is very clear, give unto Caesar what is Caesar. And also Christ is very clear that the power that Caesar has is given by him. Now here's Paul here certifying this idea here. In Romans chapter 13 verse 1 onward, it says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. So it is God who decide that this is how the world should run. Because you're reading here, it says, whosoever therefore resisted the power, resisted the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror of good works. That's not the intention, at least. But to the evil, wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is a minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is a minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Wherefore ye must need be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay you tribute, which would be like taxes, also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Similar to how you pay tithe, you pay for somebody to preach you to do right. You're paying taxes for somebody to basically encourage you to not do wrong. So anyhow, it says for this very thing, verse 7, render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law, which is most naturally, that's your taxes and dues. Is saying you don't owe those taxes and dues because somebody's working, they need to get paid. For this thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So you have to follow the argument. This would not be an argument that is eliminating the first 4 commandments. This is just simply saying the last 6 commandments that has to deal with, out of the 10 commandments that have to deal with our dealing with each other. This is kind of what you're paying the tribute money to. So, there's people who have asked a question. I don't want to go off too much on a point here, but there's people who have asked a question about why should you register a marriage with the government? Because that's man dealing with man. That's not God dealings with man. The only person that God physically presented a wife to in the whole Bible was Adam. Man is man business. So this is where he says, he lists the adultery. The first thing he lists is adultery. So somebody said, why would the government be involved in marriage? Well, here it goes. Is the first thing he lists, and then he said, thou shalt not kill. That normally we say, oh yeah, it's the government business. So anyhow, so when you look at this here, he says it's briefly comprehended, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The second great commandment. So he's not talking about the first. The first is not none of Caesar's business or the government's business. And then he says, love worketh no. So if you love, you're going to not kill or commit adultery and so forth. Verse 10 says, love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is a fulfillment of the law. And I'll stop there at verse 10. So I'll get back to that. But there's a lot of meat there in that thing, worthy of plenty of discussions. But we're going to focus today on defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic is my topic again. So when you take these two things, the oath of allegiance, and then the Bible saying that, look, the government is there for a certain cause. It's not there to enforce religious laws. It's there to enforce laws that has to do with human dealings. People always question about, should they do certain things until something goes wrong. When it comes on to business and contracts, when everything is happy and things are going well, the government is per se not needed. It's when things go bad and people get greedy, people get selfish, then all of a sudden you need an arbiter. So here is the crux of the matter. So this is straightforward. The Bible, there's enough text in the Bible to show that the moment man became a sinner and man did not subject himself to God anymore, God says, the state have to exist. It is necessary for man to sort it out amongst himself. Okay, so here is something I want to put forward to you now. So when we look at defend against all enemies, we can simply say, you as a Christian, it's fine for you as a Christian to work in a military. If you're a Christian, you're not against picking up arms. In other words, so military or non-combatant. It gives the explanation here, right there in the oath. It says you could be working in a military or a non-combatant or a civilian service. So you as a Christian, you could work in any of those three. They're being Christians or followers of God, like David, who work in a military function or capacity. And then non-combatants are people who could be working just to cook the food for the military, or could be working to take care of the medics and various different jobs like that. Or in a civilian service, there's various different the civilian service function. So that's a given. So the aim is to defend against all enemies. So obviously, this concept here of all enemies is logical, right? So it's right for a Christian, because the Bible sets up the government, God set up the government and say there's a function, and it's very clear there's a very function. We're not against big government or small government. We're just for good government, good government. So there's a function that the government serve. But the aim here is this idea here. The thing here is this idea here of an enemy, right? So an enemy could be somebody that's an enemy within, right? So it could be an enemy that is domestic enemies, an enemy within. Or an enemy could be a foreign enemy. It could be a person that is not affiliated, did not born, was not naturalized. It could be a foreign enemy. But the key word here is enemy. And this has been what my thinking is, because obviously, say a person is working for, this is my main mental target here this morning. I'm thinking a lot is a person that's working as ICE. They're working for the Immigration and Custom Enforcement Agency. So they're supposed to protect the borders and the ports of entry. So they're going to work today, and they're going to work. And if they're coming to me now and say, Lord, tell me what is the moral, biblical, godly way to approach my job. So I'm going to say that, well, I can't tell you that really, but the oath you take is really what governs your job. You took an oath to protect against enemies, right? So the enemy is the word. Now the enemy is a person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. So this is where now my thinking comes in. Because an enemy is a person who actively oppose, or a person who is a person who is actively opposed or hostile. Let's say the word. They have a hostile mentality or behavior to someone or something. So the oath of allegiance to me is we're protecting each other or the country, the whole group, against anything that is hostile or oppose. So if you oppose somebody, like what it is like personally, when a person opposes you or actively is hostile against you, you want to remove that person, or you want to bring that person to to a peaceful resolution. It's either one or the other, but you can't exist that way. If you're in a house and a person, say, is a guest, and a person is hostile towards you or actively opposing you, you either want to convert them to your side or you want to get them out of your house. If the person is internal, they're not a guest now. They're, say, a spouse or a child. You either want the person to come to some agreement with you and you can be at peace, or you want to get them out of your house, or if it's a spouse, you want to divorce. It's just gonna happen. Somebody said, "But Lord, I thought the only one reason for divorce is adultery." Well, tell me how that works. When you have a person who is actively trying to poison you or kill you, or trying to do you harm or financial damage or whatever, you're gonna deal with that. So the issue here is, in my mind, and as I say, you have my contact. If you don't have my contact, you should learn to use Google. So if I'm open to discussion, I'd really like somebody to tell me now: should enforcement be against people who are not hostile, but they're illegal in the country? That's the question I want to ask. And how I written it out here is, how does this apply when dealing with illegal migrants or immigrants that does not pose a threat to society? I'm going to go through some things here just to analyze the question, because I think it's a fair question to ask, especially if somebody work for Homeland Security, they work for any type of security apparatus within the country. Is, how do you view a person? How do you define the word enemy in practical terms? And I've been trying to read. As a matter of fact, the last article I read this morning before I come online, I was sitting there reading an article from Laura Ingraham to see if she could flesh it out for me, but she didn't flesh it out. She just talking about Democrats and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. But I wanted a definition, and I've been trying to look. And if you find an article or a video or something that somebody clearly defined, then I would like to understand that in the context, especially of the oath of allegiance, an enemy. So how do you say now an enemy? Because an enemy, again, I'm going to read it for you, is a person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. So that means an enemy would be somebody who's trying to undermine the American public. An enemy would be somebody trying to undermine the American people or opposing the American people, trying to stop them at every juncture, or cause them financial harm. And this is the big one, because this is what she was talking about. So I was curious as to find out what is the rationalization to deputize somebody, take them to swear their allegiance and say your enemy is these people, because the word is enemy. You're fighting against an enemy that's trying to destroy you. And you cannot, the Bible is very clear that the self-defense is biblical. You got to defend yourself personally. You got to defend yourself as a country or a state. God himself defended his kingdom against Satan. So God doesn't ask us to do something that he didn't do, or he doesn't actively do. He actively opposed the devil, trying to thwart him, and ultimately will kill him. So if you look at this, the oath of allegiance is something that's there. So let's look at something now. If you look at a drug smuggler, and you have experienced people hooked on drugs or die because of drugs, and all the investment in that human being by their parents, their loved one, and all of that is now destroyed because somebody wanted to make a lot of money real fast by having this person being hooked on a drug. And you say, well, look, I'm here at the border or at ports of entries to do everything in my power to thwart, to overthrow, to even cause harm if necessary, in the sense of self-defense. I'm working in a non-combatant role. I'm working in a civil servant's role to thwart the results or the workings of people who are drug smugglers. One cannot disagree with that. I think this morning here or yesterday, sometime this week, they caught a shipment of meth packed in with strawberries coming from, I think, Mexico. So that is the work. You're trying to trying to outmaneuver people who are trying to harm the public, even if that's not the intention, but that's what's going to happen with drugs. So we can agree on that. We can say that is absolutely logical because we see the devastation. We have an epidemic right now of fentanyl, heroin, oxycontin, all these things. Some of it is coming from outside China, primarily, and Mexico, and I think even Philippines, I heard. And then some of it is coming from internal sources. People are here cooking it and making it in their backyards, or they're making it from pharmaceutical companies across the country. So these are domestic and and domestic and foreign combatants or enemies. So this is where law enforcement has a right to do that. We have a right biblically to protect ourselves against people when it causes us harm, personally or state-wise. Now, when you look at a murderer, it's the same thing. A person wants to come in and wreak havoc and murder people and get away with it. It is a right to put an end to that because this is what the Bible says: "Thou shalt not commit, thou shalt not kill." And that's the business of the state, to take care of murderers. So this again, we can see a person swear to that is doing a good job, excellent job, because there's so many murderers. There's so many. 2 weeks ago, I think it is, and it just came in the news last night and this morning that there was a lieutenant from the military. I don't know if he was active. I'm gonna have to go back and get that piece of information, but more is coming out that he had planned to murder at immense scale or large scale innocent people and various different politicians, and he'd been planning for years, and he have a stockpile of weapons and so forth and so on. So that would be a domestic terrorist or domestic enemy. If we just use the word enemy, because people go back and forth about who should be called entitled enemy, terrorist, but just obviously it's an enemy. Nobody can argue with that. But this is an internal enemy, and by the blessings of the Lord, there were FBI agents and other people who were investigating, and I guess he made a mistake somewhere, and they caught him before he did any crime. And this has been happening over and over again. So these are domestic enemies that needs to be, the society need to be protected. So a person doing that job, you could say, is great. That's clearly defined. That's an enemy. Rapists, people who want to have violent or non-violent, I don't know, there's always violent, sexual relationship with a female without, well, if I guess I sedate them, it's not violent in that way, but sexual relationship with a female that is not without permission. And now, I guess because homosexuality is the new thing, they have all these rapist homosexuals also, just like in Sodom. So we have this problem, all right? So it could be a foreigner, it could be a foreigner that is doing this because they're illegal in the country and they want to rape people, and they need to be arrested, prosecuted, imprisoned, and then exiled or expelled from the country. Same thing with traders. Right now, if you look at what's going on with the Mueller investigation, we just simply find out that there was a lot of people for money. Most of the time, millions of dollars, they would sell out their fellow human beings. Those are domestic enemies. This is clearly defined. Financial wrongdoers. Normally in America, we spend a little time trying to prosecute the crimes and lock up financial wrongdoers, especially if they are domestic wrongdoers. And yet, this is a big problem to the American public. This is not rigorously prosecuted. One of the big arguments that many people have now, let's take it back now to the subject. I'm trying to cover all my base. So one of the big questions people have is that illegal immigrants are driving up the federal healthcare costs and are being cross-subsidized by the American public. So if a person is going to the emergency room and because they're sick, that cost is not just disappear. Now it drives up the cost. The hospital is gonna filter the cost into everybody else, and then we pay via health insurance. So those costs are being driven up. So that could be viewed as financial harm. But what is often not stated is that they often, when they write articles like this, they tend to forget to. I don't know if it's convenient or they're part of the enemies of the United States. They tend to not write. What was the person doing when they get injured? Were they just out there playing soccer in a soccer field and they got injured? Or was it that they were in a farm somewhere picking watermelons and hurt their backs and now had to be rushed to the emergency room? Because that extra money that the farm owner saved by hiring illegals, that's money in an American pocket. How is that hurting America? And how is that really cross-subsidizing? Really what you're cross-subsidizing is more profit for rich people. So that's why I see it. But that's a point that is put out there. So somebody could say they're financially harming us as a group. So we have to have people sworn in to protect against that. So look at this with me here. So as you know, many times the oath of allegiance is more clearly seen when you're swearing in like a politician or somebody in military or somebody in some type of one of the armed forces or forces, whether it be police force or something. So say they swear into this thing and they swear in and they say, we're going to defend against all enemies. And if the enemy is domestic or foreign. Now, when you think about the immigrants, right? And the immigrants, an illegal immigrant come in the country, why would that be classified as says each immigrant coming in the country is automatically enemy? Because if you're a legal immigrant and you're in America and you're approached by a military recruiter, the military recruiter will say to you basically that if you join the military and you serve the country, you're on an automatic path to citizenship. Now, that military recruiter does not look at that immigrant, knowing the person is illegal, doesn't say to that person, you are an enemy. And since I'm sworn to defend America, I'm going to karate chop you or I'm going to arrest you. That's not what they do. They say that since if you serve the country, you're automatically viewed as positive for the country and you don't have to join the line. You're automatically at the front of the line. Because joining the military or applying for, to work for the military or whatever, it is just an ultimate given. You didn't even go one day boot camp yet. You're our friend. So if you're a friend, couldn't the regular Americans say a person who is illegal, who joins the military is taking away American jobs? So when you think about that, a person that joins the military is taking away jobs that the taxpayers' dollar is funding. And because they have no legal status. Their status is that they're illegal. Right? And that's normally given because every time a person from a foreign country who is here illegally join the military and he gets a path to citizenship because he's willing to put himself in danger. So he's proving that he's not an enemy, but he's actually a friend. He actually goes straight to the front of the line and he's now a friend of America, and he's proven that he's not going to harm Americans, he's going to bless them. So you would say he's not an enemy. So in my mind, now I could be wrong, but in my mind, that tells me that it is not an automatic given across the board that if a person is illegal, then they're an enemy of the American people and they should be defended against or should be worked against, because there is a group of people that although they're here illegally, they're automatically viewed as friend if they're willing to go into the military because they're willing to show that they're willing to work to benefit America. So my question to you is, why aren't other people who have demonstrated their willingness to work to benefit the American people, why aren't they given the same fast track or the same type of treatment? Because if the military, and I know somebody said, but a person who say come to work in America and they want to establish a 7-Eleven or a convenience store that sell gas. They just come to make money. There's no way to truly demonstrate that they are a friend, but there's also no way to demonstrate that they're an enemy. Because again, I'm going to read the description of an enemy. An enemy is a person who actively oppose or hostile to someone or something. A person who set up a convenience store and then start to pump gas. You can't say per se that they're their friend, and you can't really say they're enemy. It would be more you lean friend. They're more you if you are honest person, you would say, well, they kind of lean friend because at least they're willing to get me my smokes. They're ready to sell me some cigarette. At least that's whoever go to buy cigarettes, or for me, I go there, I could buy some water. So I couldn't really. I've never really driven past one of those places and say, "Oh, these immigrants, they open up a new gas station and convenience store, and they're trying to harm the American public." You will see them as beneficial because they're providing a service. They're working to they're working. They're not stealing. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, but if they go to the hospital, they get sick." So they were pumping the gas and somebody wasn't paying attention and I hit them with a car. Now they're rushed to the hospital, they're not going to pay. But all that work they've been working, they're not taking. They actually was given into the system. Now somebody said, but they didn't pay into the federal system. Yeah, they're making more money for the owner of the gas station. He's richer for it. So how do you see that? I have some more things to talk about, but how do you see that? Because I see that as if you can say one group is only one job. Because again, same thing. If I can work for America in a military capacity as an illegal, why is it that I just can't work for the American people as a police, as an illegal? I can just apply. And that has proven that I'm willing to defend the local people against local enemies. That should apply. Should not be give me up if I say, hey, look, I want to work for the local police department. Everybody say, wait. You can't work for the police department. Why? Because you're illegal. Well, that should prove that I'm for the people because I'm willing to defend against the domestic enemies. So that should give me a pat, right? If I'm willing to pump gas for the American people. And I say pump gas because I know I think New Jersey is the only state that the gas stations are required to pump gas. To have somebody to pump the gas. The attendants. There's no attendance in most states. I think in all states. I don't think I've ever been to another state that has that. So we don't pump our gas here in New Jersey. So again, that guy there is pumping my gas. I just never thought about him that says, man, easier to harm me. I'm thinking, it's good having my gas pump in New Jersey. And often if I have not been out of the state for a few months, when I leave the state and I have to go pump, sometimes I leave the state, I don't pump gas. So I could go a whole year or more never pumping gas. And when I go out, I sometimes have to ask them, how do you do this again? I forget. So that's to me is the issue. I've never seen a person in a certain capacity working and thinking, man, this person is here to harm the American public. But some people could say they are harming the American public because they're taking away jobs. And they have done very many different tests with this where they've tried to get rid of all illegals from working, like in some farms. And what it is, the regular citizens don't want to take the jobs. In some situations, the regular citizens take the jobs. I'll cite 2 examples before I go to this article I wanted to talk about with this topic. One example of this I see is like recently they had done a lawsuit against the Obama administration had done a lawsuit against the Asian stores and supermarkets and restaurants and won in court to force them to hire workers that are Americans. Because, you go into almost all Asian supermarket and restaurants and stuff. It's just Asians working there. So they say, hey, look, you're discriminating. You got to open it up. And they open it up on the Asian supermarket I go to actually in the last few years. I've had Black American and a white American working in the supermarket. Now, the people who stock the shelf, for the most part, they're still, well, I shouldn't say no more. I just leave it at that. So But the Asians, they still have the Asian workers, but now they've blended in two workers, a white worker and a black American. So that's a benefit to that. You open it up. So again, because somebody want a job, they should be able to get a job. I have no problem with that. I really believe that because again, you're looking out for your own. I believe you have a right. Each person has a right to protect their own. And that's what it is. And part of the problem is sometimes it's not so much you can't get people to pick tomatoes or melon. It's just what are you going to pay them to pick tomatoes or melon? And there's many people who are like, I'm not going to do it for that price. And that's the problem. It's sometimes the price. It's not like you can't have people working to make beds at the President Donald Trump's various different resorts. It's just like what he wants to pay them. Because I'm sure if somebody's going to pay you $20 an hour to change beds, there's a lot of people who take that jobs or American. It's just what you're going to pay. So, but again, when you see a person working, like say, at certain jobs, you don't really think about them as a they're as enemy. And this is where my thing is that why certain enforcement and not enforcement, especially on those who are hiring, because they're domestic enemies. So if you're going to go after, say you go and do a raid, as I believe, and I said earlier, if you're going to do a raid and you go to a factory and you go to the factory and there's 20 people that have no papers, they're illegal. I think the supervisor, the manager, the owner of the company, everybody up to the CEO need to be all arrested. Everybody locked up. And if you're going to do it and just go it across the board, the law should be blind. And enforcement, if the person said this is an enemy, well, you go after the foreign enemy and the domestic enemy, especially if it can prove that there's harm. But if there's no harm and you have a company, say a factory, a warehouse, and I've worked in warehouses, they can be hard work. It's just no, it's always hard work. And I've worked in warehouses where almost everybody there has a story. Black, white, Hispanic, all of a story. Asian, everybody have a story. What is the story? I work with guys that are ex-Vietnam vets, ex-military guys from Desert Storm. I work with people who, because of drug problem, they got fired from other places. I work with people who are illegal, people who are immigrants, but they don't speak hardly the language, but they're legal. And so their options are limited because they don't speak English, or even though they're legal. I've worked with, just people from people who just came from prison. And so you're in a building and you're looking around and then you start to talk to each individual and you start to find out there's a story behind that person. That person's probably just came out of prison and the only place that will hire them is like a warehouse or a factory. That person is a Vietnam vet. You talk to them, they have some mental health problem or something like that. They're not trusted in certain jobs. They can't get clearances. They have drug problem, all kind of stuff. And so then you start to realize real quickly that sometimes these warehouses can get, a person that doesn't have those problems to work. And so they're in a situation. And again, so do I look at the warehouse manager and say he's an enemy of the American people? I never thought about that. The moment I start to understand where their situation is coming from, and what they're dealing with, that they put a job request out there and nobody bites it. But the people that will say, yeah, I'll take that job, is somebody who has a story. They probably just got a divorce and things fell apart for them and they just want a mindless job, literally. That said to me, just something where I don't have to think. I just want to come and do 9 to 5 and go home. I don't want to think about it. I don't want the pressure. And I just do a physical job. All kind of stories. And then you start to find, wow, people have various different stories. And so that manager now has a problem. He says he has to get the pallets out. The stores have to be stocked and he can't get a regular American that doesn't have a prison record or so forth to work. So he has to turn to people who are not documented. Now, as I say, I'm looking at that person. I'm like, this person here is not an enemy of the American public. I never thought about it until a lot of these things going on, and I'm starting to think, so this person's an enemy? How is that person an enemy? The job needs to be done, and you can't find people to do the job. How do you the enemy. There's a lot of people sometimes are able-bodied to work, but they like to smoke and take drugs. You can't have them in certain areas because they're driving a forklift and that this has happened and just drive it straight through the door and go kill themselves and stuff like that. You just can't have that type of stuff. And so even though you deal with people who are down on the luck, you're trying to not have people come in drunk. And so they have a headache. And sometimes a foreigner fits that profile better because he might not be a drunk. He's willing to come in work overtime because he has family back home that are starving. And, he's going to come in Monday. I've dealt with in places where there's a lot of people who, yeah, they're legal and they're born in America, but they're paycheck drunks. They're not coming in on Monday. They might come in Friday and they might have asked you to pay them Thursday. And if you pay them Thursday, Friday don't come in and Monday don't come in. And you see them again when they're broke. And that's the reality. And you tell me if you know a lot of different reality because that's the reality out there. Now, somebody might say, you start talking and I'm like, have you ever worked in a factory? Have you ever worked in a farm? Have you ever worked in a warehouse? So what are you talking? You don't know what's going on out there. When you start getting to the lower rungs of society, it's an whole different world out there of people who have a whole lot of stories. People working on the table because they don't want to pay child support, all kind of stuff. And you when you get in that world, it's a different world. So, because my time is running, I want to get to this thing here. So I'm not going to be able to read. This is an article I want to share with you. Because again, in governance, as I say, I've quite. Let's go this because this article I'm not going to be able to read the whole thing. It's a long article. I'm going to read a part of it, and I'm going to tell you the rest of it from my head as much as possible. And this is an article that was written by USA Today. It was in other media. And important is emails show how fake universities set up by ICE lured foreign students. So in the summer of 2017, a foreign student in Michigan received an email from officials of the University of Farmington. It was a pleasure speaking with you, the university official Ali Milani wrote to the student from India. Thank you for your recent interest in the University of Farmington, a nationally accredited business and STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics institution. Here at the University of Farmington, we have created an innovative learning environment that combines traditional instruction with full-time professional experiences. We offer flexible class schedules and focus on students who do not want to interrupt their careers. At the bottom of the email, it describes the university as, quote, a nationally accredited institution authorized to enroll international students by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So this is the Homeland Security doing this. So as I said, these are the people who swear to uphold the Constitution and to protect the American people from enemies, both domestic and foreign. They are writing to people in India. The email and others like it were obtained by the Detroit Free Press, revealing how the university portrayed itself to potential foreign students. The email exchanges with Ali Milani, who is described in a LinkedIn profile as the president of the University of Farmington, showed how the school in Farmington Hills, Michigan, may have lured students to enroll in a fake university set up by the Department of Homeland Security. So I don't know how much I'm going to get to, so I'm just going to say, so there's a university in Farmington Hills, Michigan, which was set up, not a real university, with an address and everything to a building, set up by Homeland Security as a fake university to lure foreign students to register, but the real aim and the ruse was to have illegal immigrants who were looking to do master's degree to register to the university and then to deport them. Because remember now, those legal students who are getting their master's degree in science let me get back to this thing here. Science is business and science, which is so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So people are going to get their master's degree in those subjects. This university was going to lure them in and then deport them as enemies to the United States people. I remember they're not taking the place of nobody else because the Farmington Hills University was set up to attract foreign students. So that's the aim of it. It's not like they're set up to get, these people are not taking position from somebody in, say, Harvard. So they set up this institution. So the LinkedIn profile of Melanie, Ali, messed up her name again, Ali Milani, fake accreditation for the university, fake LinkedIn profile, fake everything. That mean, and they did it with the American government, all aspect of the American government. You could understand why all aspect of the American government did this, because they see it as the enemy of the people is these students to get their master's degree. So the federal indictment unsealed January 30th said that the university was produced by federal agents with an investigative division of the U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, which is part of DHS. Federal agents posed as university officials such as Ali Milani to trick the students, say attorney. Federal prosecutors allege that more than 600 students enrolled at the university knew it was improper, but the email and attorney tells a different story. In addition to the email, federal undercover agency took other steps to manipulate students, foreign students, according to the public records attorney, records and attorneys. Undercover investigators with the Department of Homeland Security register the University of Farmington with the state of Michigan as a university using a fake name. At the request of DHS, a nationally accredited agency listed University of Farmington as being accredited in order to help deceive prospective students. The university was also placed by federal investigators on the website of ICE as an university approved by them under a government program for foreign students known as SEVIS, Student and Exchange Visitor Program. So the whole thing is not geared towards, so, because many people argue that, say if a foreign student or foreigner comes into America and get a place at MIT, they just remove a seat from a citizen. But this is a total sting to nab foreign student in a foreign university set up to get foreigners, which is strange. It seemed quite clear the scheme was set up by the government not to go after legitimate offenders, but to create fear in our immigration system, said Amir Zer, which is true. You'd scare. An adjunct professor of law at the University of Detroit Mercy and spokesperson for one of the 146 students who were detained by ICE. They are going after students who are trying to better their lives because America has the best education. This is who they are choosing to go after. It's really disturbing. Out of the 600 plus students who were enrolled, 146 had been arrested and detained by ICE on civil immigration charges. All are from India except for Najla Karim Musar Sa, 29, of Dearborn Heights, Michigan, who is Palestinian. She was released last week and went back to West Bank. So just think about it. Americans pay to oppress Palestinian via the Israeli citizenry and military, and then somebody's trying to better themselves by getting a degree, advanced degree, and you arrest them and send them back as being enemy of the American people. They're trying to harm America. That's where I'm having a problem. And as I say, if you have it figured out, I'll accept whatever you say, if it's reasonable. I'll listen because I'm curious, because I can't figure out how this is, with all the other stuff going on where people are employing illegal immigrants. Why not go after them? That's, if you remove the bait, or not the bait, if you remove the person who is encouraging people to be here in the country illegal, then you remove the incentive. So go after the employers. But all of this is to go after the low hanging fruit, these young people who are trying to make a way in this life. And you see them as a means of trying to destroy America. Probably it is. I just not seen it. And I'm trying to be honest about this. I am honest about this, but I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So anyhow, in addition, prosecutors have charged 8 people for being recruiters of students, most of whom study in engineering and technology. 5 of them were arraigned in U.S. District Court in Detroit last week and pled not guilty. It's really show a contempt for immigrants, Zaire said in the of the detaining of Musar Sarsa and other students. She's not a danger to society. She's not trying to defraud, to treat her and others as hardcore criminals. Is concerning, Zaire said. They want to create fear for so non-white people, brown people don't think of coming to America anymore. So I'll pause there again. So again, what he's saying here, this is where I'd want an article. Which is where when people write articles like this, I think they make a mistake. They need to have a clear statement from the head of Homeland Security or the head of the head of Homeland Security, the lady over there that sits with the president, or somebody along the way. And if you know the answer for this, I'd like you to send it to me because I really want to know what danger it is for somebody to come to a university that's set up to attract foreign students, not domestic students. They're making money there. It's set up with a rules, but say it was real. It's going to employ American teachers. They're going to have to pay money into America to the school so they can get a degree. How is this a danger to the American people? You personally, how is this a danger to you personally? Because I can't figure out why it's a danger to me. But tell me, how is that hurting you? That Americans who are going to work in the school to teach as professors and get a yearly salary of close to 100,000 or more than 100,000, whatever that was. How is that hurting them? How is that going to hurt the American public, paying into American system? And if they got a job in America working as a math teacher or math professor, working in science and engineering or in business, how is that going to hurt the American public? When we have a shortfall to take care of Social Security, Medicaid, how is this comparable to a Mexican picking tomato? Again, how is a Mexican picking tomato hurting the American public, taking jobs and food off the table of Americans, destroying the fabric of America? This is where I'm not getting. And this is where, as I say, a person swear to protect the American people and protect against enemy, both domestic or foreign. How is a person going to a foreign university for foreign student? How are they? It is bizarre. So I'll read probably two more paragraph or so, and then I stop because it keeps going on. Oh yeah, so I'll say it again because it's worth going over there and read it again. It's a fake university. If you just go into USA Today and type it fake university and ICE, ICE, capital ICE, it will pull it up. I think if you Google it, it'll pull it right up, and you can read the rest of it because I want you to really think about it and say, how is this hurting you? And if you're a retiree and you stop working, and somebody's going to get a master's degree in engineering, and even if they get a job in America and start working, how is that going to hurt you? How is that going to cut your benefits and make you suffer as an American person? That's the question. Now, I understand how the MS-13 gang, with their violence and other evildoers, how they can hurt me and how they can affect retirement and all this type of stuff. But this is what I don't understand. How are these people enemies of the American public? That's where I just can't get it. Why do this enforcement? Why set this up and take these 140-some students who want to get the engineering degree? How is this hurting the American public? I'll read 3 more paragraphs. It says, there are reports in the Indian American and Indian media outlet as uh, as the American Bazaar say that some of the students were being held in poor conditions and getting not getting vegetarian food in accordance with their religious and cultural beliefs. Some students were already removed and are now stuck in India with debt, said Time of India report. The report said some come from poor farming backgrounds and had to take out loans to support their students in the US. The university charged $11,000 a year for a graduate student, which is unreal. So you can know that's one of the rules right there. $11,000 a year for a graduate student is low. They weren't staying on campus and all that, so that probably could explain. Before I read the next article here, so these are poor. I don't think all of them are poor farming families, but some of them, I believe, this is true. They're just trying to make a way for their family, and so the DHS see them as an no, the DHS, the Homeland Security, I see them as an enemy of the American people. A few years ago, they were doing the roads. When they do on the road near my street, and I don't know why, but I'd stop and talk to this guy. I think I had to stop and for some reason, I don't know if I was riding my bicycle or something, but what he was he come across to me as an Indian. I think that's what it was. He was an Indian guy, and he had a machine, a little thing in his hand. So I stopped and I said, "So what is that thing you have in your hand?" And it was a meter. They said to read. It was like a nuclear device or something to read the density of the asphalt. So when they lay the asphalt, if it's not a certain density, compacted, it will crumble and it won't last as long. And he said these roads supposed to last, I think he said 20 to 25 years. So he said this nuclear meter read it. Now that was kind of strange because where I live, and the work crew that was out there, everybody was white. There was not one person that was even black or from any of the nationality or people group. But this guy here was Indian, so he kind of stood out. So I went to talk to him. I said, "What is that you have in your hand?" And he told me. So he told me, and I was there and I was fascinated by this because I was saying, everybody here are workers. So I could see somebody say, you don't want to take their jobs. But it's just one Indian guy there can read this thing and he's trying to explain it to me. And I'm like, yeah, great. I just got the full point that it reads density. And I'm like, okay, thanks. And I think I rode off on my bike. And I was just thinking about it. And when I saw this thing and I say all these Indians coming to study engineering and math and science, and you go into a lot of the hospitals, you have these doctors. My father had passed away, but his doctor, the last doctor I spoke to in Jamaica, was an Indian. So you have this type of thing going on, and they're cranking it out. They're going after science and stuff like that. But I never really thought and said, oh man, this guy's in Jamaica, he's a doctor, and he's an enemy of the Jamaican people. I'm just thinking he did the work, he went to school, took on the loans, he went into debt. It is his benefit. He's not an enemy. He's not trying to harm. Nobody should be jealous of him. He did the work. If you didn't want to do the work and you want to be a dunce, why should you see him as an enemy? There's a problem here, and this is where I see this. I see it as this. One should be faithful at their job to protect their fellow citizens against all enemies. I think not only Americans should swear to this, but all foreign government should and people should always swear. Protect your own from enemies. An enemy is a person that is actively opposed to or hostile to someone or something. I don't know how a poor person living in a foreign country are willing to go into debt and do the rigor of certain courses to be able to execute a certain job, how they're going to break down the country, how they can be classified as people who are not going to pay their taxes and their burden to American economy. How is an Indian engineer or a math teacher or a science teacher or a science professor or person work for major telecommunication company or a major engineering company? How is this person a drain to the American public? How is this person a drain to the American system? Why should this person be harassed and kicked out of the country and beaten up and locked into cells where they can't eat vegetarian food? If I was locked up, I would need vegan food. So why would this be something. So, as I say, if you have answers, you have my cell phone, you can get my email. Easy to contact. I'd like you to tell me. I want to hear how they're hurting you, all these students. And since they were going to a foreign college that it was not targeted for Americans, it were targeted for foreigners. How is that taking the place of the seat of an American child who want to go away and do math or engineering or science? How is that hurting them? If you have an answer for that, I'd like to know. I don't see the sense of it. My answer is it was just nonsense. I don't see the sense. There are other people that need to be investigated and locked up and to protect the American public. Let's go after those people and God will bless the country. This type of stuff, I don't see the blessings of God on going after poor kids who want to get a better education. Let us pray. We thank you, Lord, again, and we thank you for your ways that we always, at least you call us to be faithful, and I try to be faithful to your word and to your truth and to the people I live amongst. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow morning, where we should talk about wisdom for living, although that's what we've been talking about all week. May God's grace go with you. Thanks.